I'm Kelly Harrell, author, animist, and creator of the Weekly Rune. Soul Intent Arts is my soul-tending practice, and you're listening to What in the Weird, my podcast in which I talk about runes, actionable animism, soul-tending, and how all of those intersect through sacred activism on my path. I want to thank all of my Patreon supporters who make the sharing of my rune work through the Runecast and this podcast possible with their financial support. If you'd like to support the Weekly Rune, you get access to the full Runecast, no ads, more details on the Runecast, weekly prompts for engaging the half-month rune in your personal work, and a Galder recording for how to work with the Weekly Runecast through chanting. You can contribute as little or as much as you'd like, and the rewards scale according to what you'd like to receive. And if you don't want any rewards, you just want to show your support, you're welcome to do that. Go to patreon.com and search for the Weekly Rune. You can also subscribe to the free version of the Weekly Rune by going to soulintentarts.com. And thank you so much for doing that. The Weekly Rune is out, and if you're not sure what it is, it's a runecast that I've done for years focused on the runic calendar and the current half-month rune. You can find the archive of all of the runecasts on my site, soulintentarts.com, and if you're not sure what a half-month is, listen to the early episodes of What in the Weird, or just go read the Weekly Rune at Soul Intent Arts. It's explained at the beginning of every runecast. Y'all, Manaz just won't let go. This makes the 4th week in a row that the same rune has come up in a cast. That has never happened before. I've been doing the Weekly Rune since 2012, right? 2012? I think that's right. I don't ever remember dates. Somebody go look it up and tell me. soulintentarts.com, which, by the way, has been totally revamped. That's in part why there was no podcast last week. Only got so many spoons. But check it out. I'm pretty sure this is the only time we've had the same rune come up for 4 weeks in a row. If anybody can look through the archives on the website and find another instance where a rune has come up in a row that many times, email me. I'll do a free rune reading for you. Tell me the dates and which rune it was, because that's just crazy. Back to business. Manaz is playing hardball, and that's just a weird thing to say. Nobody ever thinks about Manaz as being a difficult rune. And I have to imagine it's become a really uncomfortable presence for all the introverts, by which I'm talking about myself. This week, there's a little justice, at least, brought into that special hell to unseat the extroverts, because the nuance of knowing when you need to rely on yourself and not the group is what is entering the equation. Extroverts are usually not so great at doing that or at processing the cues to even realize that's what's being demanded of them. But the crux of the runecast this week is finding that balance and internalizing it as part of how we find our joy. And I could say how we make our joy, because for this little introvert, I never instinctively go to other people, like in my headspace, and think of them as part of my joy. I know that's like way TMI and probably just cost me some friendships, but it's true. My thoughts of joy are usually me somewhere alone in the woods or alone on a beach. It's always with the nature. And it's not always an instinct that's best for me, but I mean, think about it. What spells real joy for you? Like, what is your gut reaction when you hear me ask the question? Does it involve other people? What part of it is solitude and what part of it is community? These questions are part of the underpinning of the runecast this week, as well as understanding that regardless of what challenges we're having with people, not people, we're always in flow. We're always in la goose. That was the big hint in the runecast that I want to pick up on for this episode. And that hint was, we can't be out of flow. We can't be off our path. I hear people say it all the time. I'm not on my path. Well, where are you? I mean, being on the path is all things. If you're outside all things, where are you? You can't be off your path. There it is. I said it out loud. That's the whole podcast, folks. We're done. Nothing else to see here. Well, so where does that idea come from that we're off our paths? Who told you that this feeling means you're off your path? Things like, this is what I hear. I'm stuck. I feel isolated. I feel like everything's passing me by. That like there's something I should be out there doing, but for some reason I can't. Or that I'm not fulfilling some deeply important thing like calling, or like I can't feel myself, like a soul lossy, soul theft kind of scenario, or I can't feel others. I can't feel divinity, like, wider spiritual presence or space, or like I'm unable to move, which isn't necessarily the same thing as stuck. Like, when you're doing the things that seem like they should be able to get you going, but they just don't work. Those are the kind of life dynamics that people describe to me when they say that they're off their path. And I feel it. I totally do. Total sympathy, probably too much empathy. I've dealt with my own stuckness and feeling like a total calling loser as much as anybody. But when I sit with what's really at the heart of every one of those experiences that results in separation, what they all come down to is an external wedge that's driven between me and a personal truth, or a wedge between the fact that I even have a personal truth. Feeling stuck is natural. Feeling helpless, forgotten, useless, these are all natural feelings. And I can tell you where someone associating those feelings with, oh, well, it's just because you're off your path, I can tell you where that came from in my experience. It came from New Age teaching that, some New Age person internalized the perspective that I created myself into a corner and couldn't find my way back to path. It's a lot like original sin, right? Or victim blaming. All of those concepts, that list of stuff that I just rattled off, that's what people say to me that they equate with, well, it's because I'm not on my path. All of those concepts at their heart are created to divide, period. They categorize us into hierarchies of who's more valuable than whom, based on what traits, things we usually can't change. And when somebody masterfully comes along and twists those life dynamics in our minds into believing that we can't save ourselves, that we can't be our own conduit to divinity, then we can't be in flow. We've fallen. We're outside the master plan. Except that it's not possible. Except you are divinity. You're no better. You're no worse than someone else. You are part of the divine. You're part of all other. That's animism for real. At this point, I can refract jelly beans to animism. But let's break this down a little bit more. What do I mean when I say all things? And, for those of you who haven't waded through my website all these years, that's in capital letters. All things. Is it the universe? Is it the multiverse? Capital G God, all the gods, goddesses, gender-free experiences of divinity. For me, all things means everything in existence consenting. Period. It's not this fantasy place or state of being where everything gets along and there's no conflict. I didn't say it's utopia. No. It's everything in existence consenting, because I firmly believe and experience that is flow. Consent is our natural state of being because it implies bargaining. It implies negotiation, respect, boundaries, needs expressed, needs assessed, needs met by you or someone else. And if it has all of that, then guess what else it is? It's animism. And push comes to shove, the lack of consent is colonization. It's that impulse to say that one thing is always better than another. That's division. That's separation. It's the church and how we're not supposed to have direct relationship with divinity. The bigger systems of our lives are built on a lack of consent. This is a collective truth, and it's the personal truth that we have all had violated over and over. And this is the personal truth that I was talking about above with that whole big list of things about life dynamics and feeling off path. They all come down to the personal truth of your consent being violated. Flow is consent. All things is consent. Laguz is flow. Consent is laguz. I want to hear from you about that. I know it's another radical idea. It's not your rune's norm, and yet we're in the bigger flow. We have to think about these things, and the runes give us these lush, applicable concepts to hold up against the now and still read their ancient wisdom. We have to know our own personal relationship to consent and how we feel when we're off our paths. What does that mean? What does it feel like? And we need to realize where we're trying to succeed in systems for which we haven't given them consent to domesticate us, to separate us, and to violate us. And in that realization, we have to come to terms with how we're going to change that dynamic for everyone. That's it for this episode. If you have questions or insights about working with the runes in season, or you just need a cheerleader, feel free to email me at kelly@soulintonarts.com or call in through the Anchor app, which you can download for Android or iPhone. Also, check out earlier episodes by downloading them from Google Play or iTunes and all the other podcast platforms out there. If you get a chance, check out Everyday Animism, which is a podcast that I co-host with a couple of other lovely ladies, also on Anchor. And other podcasts you might enjoy are Around Grandfather Fire, hosted by James Stovall and Sarah Odinson, and also Why Shamanism Now, hosted by Christina Pratt. You can learn more about me and my work by visiting soulintonarts.com or on Instagram at Kelly Soul Arts. I'm Kelly, and this has been What in the Weird.